Hi there, YouTube. Hope you guys are all having a great day so far. So I took a look at my last tier list video, the one that took nearly 2 hours, and you guys apparently really liked it. So today we're gonna do another tier list video, but something a little different today, and hopefully a lot shorter, so that way you guys can actually watch it in one go. This is gonna be a pay-to-win Garen skin tier list. Now, I thought about making this video for a long time, and I've always been on the fence of making it, because when it comes to all the different champions in League of Legends, there truly are some amazing pay-to-win skins. So much so that, in fact, that in competitive play, there's a certain list of champion skins that are prohibited from competitive play just because of how game warping or game obscuring those skins actually create when you play them in a competitive environment. In solo queue, it's anyone's game. You can lock in any skin you want so long as you own it. Today, what we're going to talk about is specifically for Garen. And you guys might be wondering, does Garen actually have pay-to-win skins? And to that, I say, yes, actually, he kind of does. And what's even more interesting about the whole matter is that he actually has pay-to-lose skins, if you also think about it. So today, we're going to go ahead and rate all the skins that are considered pay-to-win and all skins that are considered pay-to-lose. I am not going to be evaluating chromas. I feel like chromas are attached to pretty much the visuals of the skin, and besides Mecha Kingdom's Garen, there's no really huge aesthetical changes besides like some particles here and there, you know, yada yada. So for that reason, we are not going to be including chromas. All right, we're going to make this as easy and quick as possible. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Now, let's go ahead and show you guys what I have here. This is my current list. So I've rated it by 5 categories here. First category is pay to win. Pay to win is something that's defined truly will give you an in-game advantage depending on the graded criteria of circumstances. We'll put anything in this tier that I can truly register with you guys as pay to win. Next on the list is amazing. Amazing, although amazing means this is a great skin to use in game. Although it will imply, usually if I say although, it's gonna mean it's gonna come with a catch. There's gonna be a certain gimmick or perk to it, or some sort of prerequisite that you're gonna need to really use this skin well. Free or good investment. This is gonna cover all the cheap skins that are good to pick up, and I feel like are really clean and simple to use. The next category is no effect or meh. This is going to be a category where I feel like there's just no real impact on getting this skin, or it's just really a lackluster one. And then last but not least, we have the final category here, which is pay to lose. Yes, there's actually going to be a pay to lose category here. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive on into it. So I'm going to move Mecha Kingdoms further down the list because I actually want to talk about a really good, solid choice. Dreadneck Yarn, guys actually use Dreadneck Yarn. His spin is surprisingly very vibrant when you actually use it. I'll go ahead and include this in the video, of course, the animation, so you guys can see it. But if anybody who's used the skin before, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's a very basic skin, right? Very basic animations, except the spin. For some reason, they make Garen's spin just super bright and super yellow. So what's interesting about this skin is that a very bright skin makes it actually incredibly good to go ahead and use that spin to mask Garen's movement. And I'll be referencing this type of feature a lot, because when it comes to hiding your Q or trying to hide your movements so that way you can avoid skill shots, I think Garen's spin on Dreadneck is one of the most disorienting ones out of all Garen's spins on skins, because of just how he turns into this bright yellow flying saucer, and it's just completely masking his movement. But it also, furthermore, it masks his Q to the point where you can only distinguish it if you have the sound up. The only reason why I won't say that Dreadneck Garen is pay to win is because if someone has their volume adequately balanced, and they can register Garen's Q with the activation of the sound effect, which is used at the start of Q. That's the only reason why I won't say this skin is pay to win. It's very close though. So I'm gonna put this in amazing, although it does have the counter that if somebody actually has their volume tuned for sound effects, you actually will be able to detect that Garen's Q is being used in spin. So I'd say it's like really, really up there. But you in some categories you could actually put this as pay to win, but in my personal opinion, we're gonna put this in amazing. I think Dreadneck is really, really good, just for the aspect of the spin. Very, very basic skin, but that's it. Next up is Garen's base skin. Okay, what else? What can we talk about this? So Garen's base skin is not exactly not exactly pay to win by any means, because you get it by default. But is it actually valuable? I guess we'll talk about this. Is it valuable to actually ever use Garen's base skin? Well, unless you guys are like using the base chromos, which I agree with anybody who says that they say it looks amazing. Because they are, and using the chromos is very, very fun and stylish. Other than that, like, you're not really getting any type of advantage using Garen's spin. Garen's spin's pretty standard. The Q is very defined, just like Dreadneck Garen. So if you do use Q in spin to hide Garen's Q, again, this does fall into another category where your opponent can go ahead and register the Q. If they listen to the sound effects. So for that reason, this Garen's base doesn't really offer anything for him. Garen's W, he also lights up his pauldrons too. So like on top of that, he also gets a yellow shield placed over his base model. So it's another thing to consider too, is that his W, it's very, very visible when it comes to using his W. So like in terms of like visual registry, Garen's base skin is one of the shiniest displays of him using his W, so it's less subtle. Therefore, it gives more of a indication to your opponent that W is used. This is a very important discussion because there's a lot of people who just don't know what Garen W does. I've been playing this game for over 10 years, and I still run into people in Masters who just don't understand that Garen's W gives him a shield. Like, what Garen's W does. Like, sure, they think of it as a defensive steroid, but, like, what does that do? Like, okay, oh, there's a shield, but, oh, people forget it's also 4 seconds of 30% damage reduction, which is now standardized across all ranks. So, yeah. Still a flashy display in W. Very, very distinct sound effect on Q. So, therefore, we're just going to put it in free or good investment because it technically is free to use Garen's base skin. So, it's a decent investment. You know, I mean, if you guys have no other Garen skin to use, I mean, playing base Garen skin is okay, but it's not exactly pay to win. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Sanguine Garen. And I'm going to try to extract my bias as much as possible here. Because realistically, this skin, I don't like at all. And I think I've stated this multiple times on this platform, on several channels, that I just don't like this skin. And I think that because he possesses all the audio cues of Garen's base skin, on top of having ridiculously shiny armor when he uses his W, I think it's actually worse than the middle category of free or good investment. Again, I'm not saying this because I hate the skin. I really am. I'm trying not to do this, but however, Garen has the visual flair of the yellow aura when he uses W. On top of that, he turns his entire armor into this like shiny silver-esque type of overcoat that goes over his entire armor. So it's very, very distinct when you use W. Therefore, the ability is extremely readable, and therefore, I'm going to go ahead and put this into no effect or meh. Now, the only reason why I'm not putting this into pay to lose is because, again, I'm trying to fight my bias as much as possible. I hate the skin. I do think the skin is maybe cool for other people to use. I know other people appreciate the skin a lot, and there's nothing that essentially works that hard against using Garen. It doesn't work against the player that much, except the W, so therefore I'm going to put it in no effect or meh. It's just a meh choice. Nothing pay to win by any means. It's just not that great. Moving on next, let's go ahead and talk about what's this skin again? Oh, right, yeah, that's right, Rogue Admiral Garen. I can't believe I always keep calling him Pirate Garen. The official name is Rogue Admiral Garen. And I'm definitely dating myself here because I haven't used this skin in a very, very long time. So Rogue Admiral Garen is it's a very, very basic skin. It offers the same type of visual and audio cues as most of Garen's basic skins. Therefore, there's no real advantage or disadvantage to these skins in general. Garen has less of a glow on his armor when he chooses to use W, as far as I'm aware. So it's actually kind of better than Sanguine, or most of his other basic skins for that very reason. His skin's got a really, really good obscure over his model, although it's very similar to most basic Garen skins, so nothing really crazy about that. Other than that, his passive is kind of the same, etc., etc. I really can't see there's anything particular about this skin that makes it pay to win. I do think it's a pretty solid choice if you guys are on a budget. So I'm going to go ahead and put this into free or good investment. All right. We will talk about Warring Kingdom's Garen next, which is actually really interesting because this is a skin that changes Garen's visuals quite a bit. And I think that one thing about Warring Kingdoms is that his W is kind of subtle. Besides the initial cast, which displays that green shield over his model, it doesn't dynamically change Garen's armor enough. And what's actually really, really cool about this skin is that the sound effect of activating Q is definitely a little bit of a duller frequency than Garen's shing noise on using his Q. It's very different, but it's actually more subtle, I think, than standard traditional Garen skin or one of his very first early skins. So, like, it's for that reason why I do think that if you guys were to play Warring Kingdom's Garen, it's actually probably leaning towards pay to win. The only downside to the skin is that his sword is very, 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 very large. So when you're masking Q with spin and you begin to drop the sword is so large that it does create a visual reaction point for your opponent to react to. So that's the only qualm I have about it. Other than that, I think the skin is very well designed. It's a very clean experience. The animations are very solid. And it's just an enjoyable experience. So I'm going to go ahead and put Warring Kingdoms in amazing. Yeah, the quiet sound effects definitely put it into a caliber that I do think that you do have a slight small competitive advantage using it. You know, actually, I guess because by that definition, we technically should put it into pay to win here. Because it technically does offer a subtle, I will say subtle, not the highest rated pay to win, but it definitely is in its category of pay to win, I think, even though it's a very, very subtle type of factor there. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Desert Trooper. Desert Trooper has a very distinct defined sword that's large. And the spin is very, very standard. The thing about this skin is that it's hard to access. And I really can't put it in the amazing category just because it's kind of hard to get the skin because I think it's often put in the Legacy Vault. There's no real defined advantage by using this skin. And I hate to break it to you guys. Desert Trooper is just a very, very old Garen skin. There's just nothing about it that's modernized or distinct enough to really warrant a competitive advantage. It's as close to the base Garen skin as possible. You're just dealing with a model swap, so it just carries all the basically standard features that Garen has as a base skin. So therefore, nothing really competitively advantageous there. So we'll go ahead and put it into a free or good investment. Like, sure, if the vault's open, you guys want to nab the skin when you guys have the opportunity, sure, that's fine. But just know that there's nothing going to be really, there's going to be no really competitive advantage by using this skin. All right, next up, let's talk about Mecha Kingdoms, and we'll go ahead and put these two together because I feel like they should all be categorized together because this is basically just a chroma swap with some fancy effects. Mecha Kingdoms Garen is, by definition, and this is widely discussed and agreed upon by a lot of Garen mains, not by myself, is pay to lose. And anybody who hasn't used this skin before should understand that when you go ahead and use Garen's ultimate, there are 3 laser lines that converge into a epicenter to indicate when the ult is going to detonate, and that is very, very disadvantageous for you as a player because the worst possible thing you want to happen is someone to time their flash accurately enough to be able to get out of range to be able to cancel your ultimate altogether. And that convergence of those 3 laser lines is basically the visual reaction window, just almost like an active time event in many traditional games. How much time the player has before they basically just get nuked by Garen's ultimate. Now, of course, even with this visual indicator, there still will be people who flash preemptively and die just because that's just how it works with registry and server-side ping, you know, yada yada. But still, any type of visual aid that we can give to the opponent is definitely agreed upon by many that it's just not helpful. In fact, it's a deterrence. So it's for that reason that Pay to Lose is going to be the home for Mecha Kingdom Garen. Both iterations, because it's the same problem no matter how you look at it. You know, it sucks that this is the one prestige skin that Garen has. It's Pay to Lose, but that's just how it is. That's all I can really say about it. And if anybody disagrees with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and move on to the next skin here, which would be Battle Academia. So Battle Academia, I think, has a lot of subtle animations, which is really, really cool about it. His armor doesn't dynamically change that much when using W. The flare over the initial cast on W is not that distinct either. It's another skin that features a very subtle sound effect. That's something you would have to train your ear for very, very accurately to be able to register, especially when a Garen player is masking his Q in spin. On top of that too, the animations for the skin are really nice, although I do think that, like, it is a pretty noisy skin, so I do understand that it can be, like, kind of disorienting for people, because every little hit on Garen's spin does sound a bit louder than Garen's average skin. So I mean, if you can get over that fact, I think this is a great skin and very much pay to win. The only aspect though is that it does have a pretty large swords similar to Warring Kingdoms. So I'm gonna put it up there right there. That I think this is a subtle addition into the pay to win category, but probably not one of Garen's best. All right. So that's all I have to say about Battle Academia. I think it's a pretty subtle skin in terms of, like, being able to mask Q. Next up, let's talk about Commando Garen. Commando Garen, I think, as I've said many times before without reiterating too much, it basically holds the same basic, outdated visual bells and whistles as Garen's previous skins when he first got released as a champion all those years back. So therefore, I don't think that this is a particular skin that has a good pay to win. It will definitely be better than Sanguine because it doesn't dynamically change his armor on W. Instead, you just get the visual flare over his armor, which is very subtle. So therefore, we'll just go ahead and put this into a free or good investment. It is a cheap skin, so it's a decent pickup. You guys can do this for a good gameplay change if you guys want to see something aesthetically, but there's going to be no competitive advantage for you by picking this skin up. Let's go ahead and talk about Mythmaker Garen next. I really do like this skin a lot. It's another Garen skin that has another more subtle sound activation on Q. And I do think that the visual flare kind of blends in more with his armor, so it is harder to spot, especially in a crowded team fight. Besides the shield going on to health bar, that is. So I think that, like, this is a really decent pay to win skin. And on top of that too, this spin is very, very disorienting. Because it has actually a very, very large visual flare that's attached to it, unlike Garen's more basic skins where it's just, like, more flattened. So I do think it's really cool. What's interesting too, this is my personal opinion as well, but I do think that, like, Garen's spin actually looks a little bit larger with Mythmaker Garen than other skins. So, like, that is a little bit disorienting to the player, because when it comes to, like, trying to fish for minions by using the maximum range of your spin, that can be a disorientation, but it could also be a disorientation for your opponents as well. Again, this is just my personal like, observation on the skin. Like, maybe it's, like, I don't think, like, realistically it is a larger range, but it does look like it's slightly bigger in my personal experiences with the skin. So, like, for that reason, I will put Mythmaker Garen as kind of like more of a pay-to-win category, I think, here. I don't have any qualms about the skin. I think it's a very, very clean skin, and you should have a very, very clean time using it. All right, next up, let's go ahead and talk about Rugged Garen. Rugged Garen is a very, very sleek skin. And it has very, very basic flares when it comes to Garen's abilities. What's great about this skin is that only Garen's pauldron, his right pauldron, will turn, like, shiny metallic when he uses W, which I think is super amazing. On top of that too, his sword is very small, much smaller than the average Garen skin. So it's for that reason that I'm gonna actually put it in amazing. The only thing that would hold this skin down in terms of pay to win is that it carries a lot of the sound effects that Garen's classic skins have that kind of make it easier to read by the opponent. So like that's the only reason why I will not put it in pay to win. It's the one thing that's kind of holding the skin back, but although I do think that using the skin is an amazing experience. Yeah, and I know people will be upset about the splash art too, but that's kind of irrelevant because they're talking about pay to win elements. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Steel Legion Garen, or Swag Legion Garen. Now, Swag Legion Garen is one of my personal favorites. I love this skin so much. It's really great. It does make Garen very bulky, so that is a very type of cumbersome element that you will have to get used to by using this skin. Is the skin pay to win or pay to lose? I'm actually going to say that this is a skin that's kind of pay to lose, to be honest. The reason why is because it's very disorienting, because this is Garen's bulkiest skin. So like when it comes to his hitbox, like I do think that this skin maybe represents his hitbox maybe better than other Garen skins. However, the biggest problem with this skin is that when you use W, Garen is surrounded by this gigantic electric orb, and it means that Garen's spin is very, 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 very noticeable. It stands out like a sore thumb. And as a result of that, I pretty much have to put this into the pay to lose category, because it's not a helpful thing for Garen's opponent. It's not a helpful thing for Garen. It's a helpful thing for Garen's opponents, because they can clearly see when W is being used, so they know when it's down. They know when they can engage. It's easier to notice. Other than that, like Garen's Q, I believe has the same sound effects as Garen's base skins, although added with like more of like a it's got like kind of like a filter over it. It's hard to describe it, but it's very distinct, and therefore it's kind of hard to stealth Q when you're using Garen spin, because again, it's a very defined sound effect. I do think that it's cool using this skin. Don't get me wrong, guys. I think it's an awesome experience playing Steel Legion, although I just don't think it really gives you a competitive advantage at all. All right, next up, let's talk about my own personal favorite, Demacia Vice Garen. Now, I know there's going to be people in the comments who are going to say this is RISTE being super biased. Of course, RISTE is going to rank his most favorited skin into the pay-to-win section. But hear me out, guys. Hear me out. That there's actual evidence that I wish to propose that Demacia Vice Garen is a pay-to-win skin. And it checks a lot of categories that I feel like is very valuable for any Garen player to consider when they are purchasing a skin. The first thing we need to talk about is Garen's passive. Garen's passive turns from this green glowy type of thing, which Riot Games definitely acknowledge that they want to be in future skins because they want to stand out. The exception to that, though, is that they decided to scrap that for Demacia Vice Garen. Instead of Garen's like green glow, it's more like a subtle type of shimmer on his body, coming out of his body when his passive's online. So it's definitely a little bit more subtle there. The only thing that I can say is that the sound effect when Garen's passive comes on is pretty distinct. So if the Garen's opponent plays against it enough times, they'll definitely be trained to recognize it. So, some pros and cons there. The biggest thing is the Q. I think Garen's Q on Demacia Vice Garen, the sound effect is so subtle and it blends in so noisily with Garen's spin that it's almost impossible to recognize it unless you're listening to it in an isolated instance and you're able to determine it by listening to it over and over. It is one of the cleanest skins to take on to any range matchup, just because of how you can hide Garen's Q sound effect. Not just that, but visually you can hide it as well, because Garen's Q, when used in spin, is also extremely difficult to recognize as well. So if you guys want to go ahead and hide your Q into a range matchup, Demacia Vice Garen is the best skin hands down to do it. Not just from a audio standpoint, but from a visual standpoint. On top of that too, Garen's Q offers one of the slimmest swords by base model definition out of any skin, right up there with Rugged Garen. So when it comes to going E into Q, you will notice, guys, that you have a competitive advantage in terms of trying to throw for a reaction versus something like maybe a Fiora or any champion who can maybe block your Q, Jax, etc., etc., by using Demacia Vice Garen compared to a basic Garen skin. I implore for you guys to go ahead and try this out because you guys will notice a difference. I do think it's just a clean skin to use overall. My only qualm about the Demacia Vice Garen is that it does take time to get used to. But other than that, you guys will see by definition that it is a pay-to-win skin. So I'm actually putting it up there as probably the #1 pay-to-win skin. And again, I know that this is I'm representing the Demacia Vice by the Skin Academy here, but I truly do believe that it is one of the best pay-to-win skins for Garen. And I do think that you guys will be satisfied with it if you guys get used to it. All right, and now last but not least, let's talk about Garen's legendary skin. God King Garen. Now, I do think that there's a lot of, like, confirmation bias, or maybe there's a lot of people saying, hey, this is what I've noticed with God King. Can somebody actually confirm this? Maybe it is possible. I haven't seen anybody try to do a comparison video here and just do, like, time the milliseconds and microseconds. Let's talk about the speculation first. There's a lot of people who do confirm or have tried to confirm or have observed or witnessed that either tested it or just by experience that Garen's animations are sometimes faster when you use Garen's Q and E and R with God King Garen. I have personally witnessed some inconsistencies using this skin, sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. Like, I remember a few seasons back where, like, if you canceled Garen's spin, like, too quickly, he would sometimes keep spinning. Or, like, if you immediately used a Q, an E into Q, it would, like, he would continue spinning. Like, there was a lot of visual, like, inconsistencies with the skin. And I can't list all of them because there was definitely, like, more than 3. Does that mean that this is a pay-to-win skin? I don't think it is. Like, does it mean that landing the Q is faster? Possibly. The biggest downside to the skin, I think, is just getting used to it, because God King Garen is dynamically different than any other Garen skin because it's his legendary skin. You have to get used to it. Once you get used to it, it's a pretty lush experience. I really enjoy playing God King through and through. I do think that visually, though, it really depends on the patch, because I do think that we have observed in the past, like, certain patches, Garen's God King skin has been consistent, and then other patches it's been inconsistent, and there's been some really weird visual stuff going on with it that either benefits the Garen player or it's just kind of, like, unplayable. So I'm gonna say, like, it is probably pay to win, but it really depends on, like, what the patch is doing, like, what is going on, like, visually with this champion, like, either in coding, something's going on, something's going haywire. I will put God King Garen in amazing, although it's just not a very consistent skin, because it seems that Riot Games several times over the years has to go ahead and fix the skin up because visually it's not functioning properly. You know, so it's the skin with the highest maintenance, and therefore I think it's the most inconsistent skin, because, like, unlike all of other Garen skins are just consistent through and through. Whatever is good and bad about the skin is always going to just stay true, but God King is, like, the skin with the most amount of unique animations, so if there's anything that ever happens wrong with Garen skins, it's always going to be God King, because of just all these weird interactions and clauses that just create something either beneficial for the Garen player or the opposite. All right, so yeah, I think that kind of wraps things up here. I think that this is a pretty satisfying list. Again, I think you guys have 4 very solid choices when it comes to selecting something that could benefit you in games. The other 3 here are kind of more so oddballs, but although I will say that besides God King Garen, these 2 are more affordable and pick up, and then everything below these 2 categories I would not consider playing, especially if you guys do want a slight or significant competitive advantage in your games. All right, that's all I have to really say about this. Let me know what you guys think. Did I miss anything, like, elements-wise, about, like, critiquing these skins? Please let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see what everyone else has to hear about this. If you guys feel like I misranked something, or I'm just too biased to picking Demacia Vice Garen for the pay-to-win category, just let me know in the comments. I want to hear exactly what you guys want to say. All right. Thanks everybody so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. Yeah, see you guys later. Goodbye, baby.